A lot of us are no stranger to Christmas morning chaos, especially when you live in a multi-generational home. Over the years, I've realized the best way to make Christmas mornings smooth and special is by serving a finger food brunch that's mostly prepped the day before. Our house is a multi-generational home. 1 kid, 2 adults, and a senior who needs soft and low sodium food. So my goal is to make a meal that makes everyone happy and helps us avoid filling up on too many Christmas cookies. Because we have a multi-generational home, cooking is a bit more complicated. Last year, my partner and I moved her 84-year-old mom in with us to become her caregivers, and she needs soft and low sodium food. I don't want her to feel left out at family meal times by serving her something completely different, so I typically make 2 versions of meals, a soft and low sodium version for her, and then a regular version for the rest of the family, which makes Lola feel included and very happy. So for today's spread, I'm making sure everything's gonna be soft enough for Lola, and I'm making it all low sodium. If the rest of the family wants a little extra sodium, they just add it. Problem solved, and everyone's happy. So here's what we're gonna make. Crab deviled eggs, because crab is Lola's favorite. 2 ways, this one has a little bit more texture and a little bit more sodium. Lola's version. Homemade tater tots, because the store-bought ones are too salty. And I definitely should have tripled the batch because these babies are delicious. Mini Dutch babies, they're cute and delicious. They also make a great dessert. Roasted sweet potatoes, also a great dessert. Fresh fruit with a sweet yogurt dip. These were just a bonus, so the potato skins did not go to waste, but they're delicious. Christmas brunch made mostly in advance. Let's get to work.
We're gonna start with crab deviled eggs. Fill up a large pot with water. Then add 2 tablespoons of vinegar. This helps make it easy to peel the eggs. Then bring to a boil. Now let's move on to the crab. Peel and smash 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to infuse oil with the garlic, but we're going to do it with a double burner. Add water to a small pot. Go about 3/4 of the way. Cover it with a small saucepan that's slightly larger. Add 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of Marsala wine, and the garlic cloves. Putting the skillet over hot water instead of directly over the flame is going to allow the oil to infuse without burning. It takes about 20 minutes. I learned this method from an Italian chef that does it for pasta. Once the water underneath starts boiling, turn it down to medium-low heat. So crab does have a bit of sodium in it. In our case, Lola is low sodium, not no sodium, and crab is her favorite, so we go for it. Plus, there's only going to be a little bit on each egg. When your water starts to boil, it's time to add the dozen eggs. In order to put all the eggs in at once without dropping them, I use a metal steaming basket to lower it in. It's just a nice little trick to make sure all your eggs get into the water safely. The olive oil has been infusing for about 20 minutes, so it's time for the next step. First, you're carefully going to remove all the garlic. If you really love garlic, you can chop this up and include it in the eggs. I didn't, I just saved it for a future meal. Add 1 tablespoon of butter, and then you can turn off the heat. Next, add the crab. Finish it off with juice from half a lemon. Another way to make sure that your eggs peel very easily is to add them to an ice bath right after you drain them. Between the vinegar and the ice bath, these eggs are so easy to peel. There's nothing like bringing holiday shame to a family by serving deviled eggs that looks like you peeled them with your foot. This method ensures that they are so smooth. Once all your eggs are peeled and rinsed, we're going to cut them in half and remove the yolks. Then we're going to add mayo and add your blend of condiments and spices. Details are in the recipe. And some red wine vinegar. You can smash this up with a fork. But I like to make sure it's nice and smooth with a hand blender. The gang's all here, it's time to build these babies. You can construct these in two ways. Crab first, then the egg on top. Or reverse it with egg first, then the crab. Which is what I chose. Repeat the process until all the eggs are filled. These crab stuffed deviled eggs are the most time-consuming recipe for this brunch. Everything else goes pretty quickly. But as mentioned at the beginning of the video, everything can be prepped the day before. And then on Christmas morning, you just uncover these and put them on the table. You might have a little bit of yolk or crab left over. I had a little. You can either really load up the eggs so you don't have leftovers, or just use it for something else. I just put it on crackers. I finished all the eggs off with a little extra smoked paprika. It's just pretty. As I mentioned earlier, I made two versions of these eggs. I left half the eggs as is for Lola, and then the other half I sprinkled a little bit of Old Bay seasoning and finished it off with capers and some chives. You could also do hot sauce, pickled onions, whatever you want. Next up are homemade tater tots. Lola loves tater tots, but all of the store-bought ones are way too salty. This might sound a little bit intimidating to make, but I promise you it is so easy. Start by peeling your potatoes. You can throw out your potato peels, but I decided to save mine to make some air-fried potato chips, because why not? Then you want to cut your potatoes into cubes about 1 inch by 1 inch. Place them in a bowl of cold water and let them sit for at least 5 minutes. I use this time to prep the mix for the potatoes. 1½ tablespoons of cornstarch, 3/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. And since I'm making these salt-free, I'm using a no sodium flavor powder, which is a nice trick for adding flavor when you're not using salt. There are a lot of different options for no salt seasoning, so use your favorite one. And some people just use a pinch of MSG because it goes a long way. Mix that up and go back to the potatoes. Now it's time to break down our potatoes a little bit. A food processor is perfect for this. And if you don't have one, you can just chop it into tiny pieces. Drain your potatoes. and then add them to a food processor. I decided to work in small batches so they would break down the right way, so I started with 1/3. Then pulse a couple times until it's nice and broken down. Think about the texture of a tater tot. Move your potatoes over to a dish rag or a cheesecloth, and then repeat. Now we need to get rid of that extra moisture. Wrap up your potatoes and squeeze out all the extra liquid. Now move your potatoes back over to the seasoning bowl. Mix until evenly combined. Now we need to put the potatoes quickly in the microwave. I was unsure if this bowl could be microwaved, so I moved it over to a different one. And I worked in 2 batches because I did want the potatoes to cook evenly. But if you have a larger bowl and you can mix it, don't worry about it. Microwave for 45 seconds, give it a mix, and microwave it for 45 more seconds. And then you want your potatoes to cool for a couple of minutes because you're going to be forming the tater tots with your hands. Drizzle about a tablespoon of olive oil on a tray. I sprayed a little bit of oil spray on my hands so the potatoes would not stick. And it worked. Form into little tater tots of the size of your choice. I made mine 2 tablespoons apiece, and I got 16 tots out of it. My biggest regret with this recipe was not tripling the batch. They were a hit, and we all would have loved to have more. I kept these completely sodium-free and very plain, but you could split the batch and season the other half with more. You could add salt, cheese would be a delicious addition. Chopped up chives, sky's the limit. I drizzled them in about 1 more tablespoon of olive oil. And then I pushed them around and flipped them over to make sure the olive oil was totally covering them. And then I set these aside because I want everything to go into the oven at the same time. I repurposed the potato skins by adding a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of smoked salt. These actually didn't fit in my oven with everything else, so I just air fried them at 400 degrees for about 10 minutes, and they were delicious. Now it's time to prep the roasted sweet potatoes. When we go to preheat the oven, we have to put the muffin tin in. That way it can heat up. And then in go the sweet potatoes and the tater tots. These are going to take longer to cook than the Dutch babies, so they go in while we make the Dutch baby batter. Dutch babies are typically served in a big cast iron skillet, but it's become popular to make them into little minis. These are so tasty, they puff up and look super special, and they're adorable. Combine 1 cup of milk, 4 eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon of almond extract, a 1/4 cup of sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 cup of flour. Blend until it's super smooth, and let it sit for at least 5 minutes. Now take 4 tablespoons of butter and cut it into 12 pieces. You want the butter to be cold, so this is easy. You want to flip your tots at the halfway mark so they cook evenly. Same with the sweet potatoes. When there's about 12 minutes left on the potatoes and the tots, it's Dutch baby time. Take out the heated muffin tin and quickly add 1 piece of butter into each section. Pour in 1/3 cup of the batter into each tin. You want to move quickly so the pan doesn't cool off because that's part of what makes them puff up so nicely. Then place them in the oven and bake for about 12 minutes. The only thing left to do is make the yogurt dip and cut up some fruit. So if you want to prep this in advance, preferably Christmas Eve, completely make and finish the deviled eggs, and then just wrap them and store them in the fridge. Make the tater tots, but don't bake them. Prep the sweet potatoes, but don't bake them. Make the Dutch baby batter and just store it in the fridge. Cut up your butter and store it in the fridge. Make your yogurt dressing and cut your fruit, and also store them in the fridge. When you wake up on Christmas morning, all you have to do is preheat the oven. Don't forget to put that empty muffin tin in there. When the oven's preheated, put in your sweet potatoes and your tater tots and cook them for about 12 minutes. Flip them and put them back in the oven. Then take out your heated Dutch baby pan, add the butter and add the batter and put that in the oven. If you're making the potato skin chips, just toss them in the air fryer for about 10 minutes at 400 degrees. And then everything will be done at once. Just plate it and put it all on the table. You get to be the Christmas morning hero, everybody's fed, and everybody's happy. Merry Christmas to all, and all a good night. And happy holidays.